Lords, I surprisingly perhaps welcome the government's attempt to strengthen airline passengers' rights, especially with the worries about aviation fuel due to Israel and Trump launching a disastrous and illegal war on Iran. I'm happy to support the Civil Aviation Authority being given additional enforcement powers to ensure that airlines comply with consumer laws. However, I'm not so keen on legislation that makes it easier to expand airports, especially if that increases the noise and pollution for people living in the immediate area or along the flight path. It's extremely bad for human health and well-being. Now, as a Green, I'm well aware that a lot of what I say in your Lordship's House is not supported by anyone else around me, and that my views on the environment, on climate change, and on the disastrous path we're taking as humans is at best contentious, and at worst it's plain wrong. But I'm just staggered by the lack of ecological awareness amongst members of your Lordship's House. It defeats me that you cannot understand the science, that you cannot see what is in front of you, and that you still support things like airport expansion when we know it's bad for the planet. I exclude the Noble Lord Earl Russell from this, obviously, and some of his colleagues. I mean, luckily, there are people outside, maybe scientists, you know, people like that, people who know what they're talking about, better than I am, who can actually say that we are headed for disastrous circumstances if we don't take climate change seriously. And this whole bill is just ludicrous in terms of the future of people and planet. I have, in fact, mostly lost hope that this government cares about people and planet. It's lost all claim to be a green government with its attacks on nature in Britain and with its decisions to expand aviation. The go-ahead for the expansion of London City Airport, Luton, Gatwick and Stansted means an extra 51 million passengers per annum. If the government adds Heathrow to that total, it's an extra 65 million. Now, the Noble Lord, the Minister, in his opening remarks said, aviation is a cornerstone of our economy, or some such. And I would say it's a cornerstone of climate collapse. And if we can't see that, I'd be happy to have one-to-one sessions with any peer who would like to discuss this further, because quite honestly, I'm in despair at the lack of awareness about what our future could be. As I said, luckily there are people outside. For example, Professor Bill Rutherford of Imperial College London said, the only way you can make aviation any more sustainable is to do less of it. All of those extra flights result in either extra emissions or in extra farmland taken up growing jet fuel, and that means rising food prices and more public subsidy. The Sustainable Aviation Fuel Bill was appallingly named. There is no such thing as sustainable aviation fuel. That was infuriating as well. It's just greenwash that will leave future governments needing to do the hard work of behaviour change in order to achieve net zero targets. I mean, actually, I'm not a supporter of net zero. It's a ridiculous aim. We should be going for less than zero. We should be cutting back completely. Net zero is unrealistic. It's real zero that we need, and less. The climate crisis is accelerating, and this bill would have been a chance to do something about that. Rather than promoting aviation, we need to cut back. The first step towards stopping more flights leading to accelerating climate change is to deal with private jets. The rich are paying a lot of money for the privilege of wrecking our planet, and the government needs to tell them it's no longer acceptable. Being rich doesn't excuse you from your responsibilities as global citizens. Flying off the weekend, perhaps every weekend, has consequences. The ice is melting, the seas are rising, flash floods and storms are becoming more powerful, heat waves and droughts are going to hit farming very, very hard. Our food supplies will be under threat. Change is happening now, not decades in the future, and that means we have to act now as well. So private jets should be the first thing that this government targets to cut back on, and this bill is the obvious opportunity to do that. Next to the frequent flyers, The government should be raising the aviation tax on people who take 2 or more flights a year. Frequent flying is something that well-off people do, and we can discourage them by reflecting the true environmental cost in the amount that frequent flyers pay. Business flights have already changed since COVID made a shift towards online working, and that trend must be given another shove. Finally, we are experiencing another record-breaking year for temperatures in this country and across the globe. The next decade will see yet more record-breaking years, and the decade after that. The decisions being made by this government on aviation will add to the disaster that the younger generation will have to live and struggle with. I ask you to stop and rethink. I don't just mean the government, I mean every single member of this House who has supported the whole idea of aviation. Stop and think for the future, for your children, your grandchildren. Actually stop and think what you are doing. You are destroying their future.